Hello. So what's up, InfoSec fam? It's 12 o'clock somewhere. And I just like to say, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm glad that you're alive, and I'm glad you're here with me. So welcome to HTTP2 and you. This is part one. It kind of got too big to have a part two, too big, so I had to split it in two, so you're going to have to wait for the part two. Anyway, this is a bug hunter and pen tester's guide to HTTP2. So basically, I think my hope is to get security researchers and pen testers to stop thinking about HTTP1 and 1.1 and start thinking about HTTP2. Do we have any devs out there? You. How many pen testers? Cool. How many of you guys actually know about HTTP2 before you read about it? Not too bad. Okay. So anyway, here's my disclaimer. Everything stated in this talk is to be considered my own opinion and not an official representation of my employer. Some assembly required, each sold separately. Batteries are not included. Keep out of reach of small children. Also, just as my legal disclaimer, don't test sites that you do not have prior permission to test, because we all know that would be bad, right? So about me, my name is Brett Gravois. You might know me as the Security Panda from the Twitterverse. If you guys have any suggestions, questions, hate mail, death threats, you can email me at panda@securitypanda.io. I am an application security enthusiast. I test pens. I like to break web apps. If you follow me on Twitter, you know I like to make some tasty food, and I'm also the owner of a majestic beard, as you can see here. So let's get started. So basically the outline is what is HTTP2? So the history, we'll go over how it works, the current security landscape with HTTP2, and basically taking you guys through my process of how to find HTTP2 out in the wild via ad hoc at scale. We'll also talk about what I found out there, and then basically how to prevent future attacks. So basically, why am I doing this? I really want to raise awareness of HTTP2. I know a lot of developers where I've talked to them about it, and they go, "Oh, great! Well, how do I switch to it?" And I've shown them my methods of finding it, and they're like, "Holy crap! My site's running HTTP2. How did I not know that?" So it's really important to me for people to realize it's out there, that it's running, and to be able to test it and protect themselves against it. I really initially hoped to find some really cool WAF bypass techniques. Just kind of looking at old and new vulns. I'm not going to lie, make some money via bug bounty. And also, I hate myself and I like pain and suffering. And basically, to take from this, stop putting shit on the internet. So basically, when you look at HTTP1 today, we've been using HTTP1 since about 1997. And it basically is turned into a protocol that everything on the internet uses, right? So huge investments have been made. There's infrastructure that take advantage of it. And it's just really easy to get it up and running for the most part. Rather than, why reinvent the wheel? Let's just keep using what's out there. But basically, it just really doesn't use TCP effectively. So it's really not taking advantage of the power and the performance that TCP offers. So it's basically been on the clients and the browser side to be able to find solutions to decrease page load times, using things like compression methods like gzip and whatnot, to make things load faster. Because I'm pretty sure we all remember from the dial-up days how fun it was watching pages load, right? I'm going to go bake a sandwich, come back, maybe the page is loaded. So basically, the thought behind it is that TCP can be utilized better to avoid pauses or wasted intervals within page load times. So what happens in 2009 is Google introduces Speedy. So basically, it had header compression, which was amazingly vulnerable to the crime attack. It had multiplexing, server push, but it was also limited because it was HTTPS only. Now into the HTTP protocol. So today, HTTP was published in May 2015 as an update. So if you look at RCF 7540, you'll find a lot more information on it. And basically, by the end of 2015, all the major browsers supported HTTP2. It's being utilized all across the internet: Google, Twitter, Facebook, and probably even maybe some of your company websites are running HTTP2 and you just don't know it. So there's a list of the web browser or the more popular web servers out there that actually support HTTP2. Apache, Lightspeed, IIS, and Nginx are basically the biggest ones. So just to kind of give you an overview of what HTTP2 is, HTTP2 is binary versus HTTP1 and 1.1 being ASCII. It makes framing easier. And it actually helps with compression, and it'll often run over TLS, diminishing the value of text, because we all know we've done packet captures and knowing what you see versus HTTP in clear text versus HTTPS where it's all encoded. So basically, you're not going to see text over the wire. You're going to definitely have to use Wireshark or something like that to actually see what's going on. Oh, there we go. So it's also multiplexed. So streams are independent since it's binary, and it's a bidirectional sequence of frames that are basically exchanged between the client and server within a connection. A single connection can contain multiple concurrent open streams. Multiplexing the stream means that packages from many streams are mixed over the same connection. It utilizes header compression. So basically, HTTPS and Speedy, as we all know, the compression was vulnerable to breach and crime. You could insert known text into the stream and kind of figure out to change the input, and an attacker could basically decrypt the payload. So basically, HTTP2 introduced HPAC, which is header compression. And it's just basically the compression format made for HTTP2 headers. The one thing about HTTP2 is that it does a server push. And so basically what it does is it's a cache push. So what the server is doing is anticipating what the client is going to ask for, and then will preload a bunch of data in anticipation for what the client might need. So, and this includes CSS files, JPEG files, JSON files, any sort of JavaScript or anything like that it's going to push ahead of time. And the client itself has to allow the server to do that. And then the client will terminate the connection once it's done. So, but we'll actually get back to this a little bit later on. So the HTTP2 handshake. So there's two types of HTTP2 instances. You can run it over HTTP unsecured, which is considered H2C. And basically, the request is pretty much the same as opposed to what we're seeing now in 1 and 1.1. So the client will make the request without prior knowledge about whether or not the client will make the request without knowing that the server is supporting it. So what it'll do is it'll create that, as you can see, it'll create the upgrade in the header request to H2C. And then on the next hop, it'll use an upgrade mechanism. So where am I going here? So if we look here, at the top, the first one is the server does not support HTTP2. So basically, you'll just get the standard 200 OK message. However, if the server does support H2C, you'll go ahead and it'll switch to a HTTP 1.1. You'll get a 101 switching protocols, and it'll actually upgrade the connection. It'll negotiate at H2C, and then it'll start talking. However, the other one is over secure, which is H2. So basically, it's making a request via HTTPS with the application level layer protocol negotiation, which is ALPN extension, which is quite different from what you're used to seeing now. So it's like, how does ALPN work? So ALPN is the application layer protocol negotiation. It's a TLS extension that includes the protocol negotiation with the exchange of hello messages between the client and the server. And basically, it negotiates the connection between the client and the server over a secure connection that's more efficient and avoids multiple round trips. The ever-growing popularity basically is pushing ALPN to further decrease web load times and make encryption connections faster. So here's a basic look at how it works. So basically, the client will send a hello message. It'll tell it over the ALPN extension the list of protocols that it supports. And then the server will go ahead and reply back and say, well, yes, I do use ALPN. And it'll basically work kind of like how TLS and SSL works now, where it'll go for the whatever the highest level that it works at. It'll negotiate at that. And then if it doesn't support, TLS 1. Or those ciphers, then it'll keep downgrading until it finds something that they can both connect on. So what's the current security landscape right now? So basically, one of the interesting things is looking at WAFs. So I say some WAFs now support HTTP2. Basically, I sent a lot of inquiries out to a lot of different WAF companies that got nervous when I asked them about this. And really only one WAF company got back to me and said, well, we fully support HTTP2. We will block things coming over HTTP2. That was actually Signal Science. And basically everybody else just said, well, we have experimental support, or you have to be on the bleeding edge version. So, I mean, how many of you are actually running the most current version of something, on your network? Not many. So that leaves a lot of interesting things hanging out there. So basically, security tools, there's really no proxies to record the traffic. Burp doesn't support it. Zap doesn't support it. Really, everybody has to rewrite their protocol stacks to see it. I've been working with Simon from the OAuth Zap project on it. He said he's going to try to add it. Burp completely took it out. So you used to be able to see the upgrade. No longer. You can't do that anymore. And you can't scan on it. So if you had a pure HTTP2 site, or if you had, if you're anything like me and you want to test a site on everything that it uses, you really couldn't do that. So if you're looking at well, is my WAF blocking this? Yeah, you can check on 1.1, but you can't check on 2 because your DAS tool doesn't support it. So how are you going to see, if your WAF is blocking it, right? And so basically we're limited to tools that people have put out there. So if you really want to explore HTTP2 more with the tools, get ready to learn Go and hate yourself. I am okay with Python, but I'll tell you what, Go, I want a head desk. I hate it. Maybe you like it. Maybe, you want to throw things at me, but I'm sorry. Go, no, I don't like you. So the HTTP or the Yahoo Paranoids rolled out a project around 2005 called HTTP2 Fuzz, which is an interesting fuzzer. It looks for basically server misconfigurations, or you're stuck kind of using Wireshark and PCAPs. So really, the security landscape just sucks. It's been around for 2 years. Nobody cares. So again, that's why we're doing this talk, right? So really, how do I tell if HTTP2 is really running, right? Your browser's not going to tell you. There's no browser extension, there's no magic green lock, blue lock, anything like that says, hey, I'm using HTTP2. So basically, we'll go over detection via one-off methods. So if you go to a page, you can actually use Firefox developer tools. And if you go to web developer and network, as you can see, you'll see that at the top it's negotiating the version is HTTP2. And then Firefox will actually add an extension down at the bottom that's highlighted in red. It'll create a header response, which is the X Firefox Speedy or X Firefox H2. So that's one way to tell. The next one is a Google Chrome extension. It's called the HTTP2 and Spidey indicator. And as you can see, if you go to something like google.com, you'll get a little blue lightning bolt. However, I've kind of found that this extension sometimes gives a false positive. And one cool thing is it actually kind of has a pseudo proxy in it, so you can actually kind of see some of the traffic, but it wouldn't be something that you would see like when you're looking with something like Burp or anything. You're not going to get the same amount of data. So the next one is this really cool page. You go in, and if you guys are used to like SSL labs or anything like that, you can go ahead and type in your URL, and then it'll just immediately tell you that it supports HTTP2 or not. And just my little fun thing is people don't ever uncheck that public key. So, I mean, you can just go through and it'll give you a history of people that are checking. So, we wouldn't do anything bad with that, right? So the next one is OpenSSL. So OpenSSL, you can go ahead and use the S-Client Connect, and then use the NextPro, which will go ahead and negotiate over ALPN, and then it'll give you a nice list of all the supported protocols. I'm a really big fan of OpenSSL. It's a really great tool, and I think it's kind of underrated. So, I think that it's kind of fun to do it that way, but it's only good for a one-off or whatnot. So next one is a little app. It's called is HTTP2 CLI. And this one, amazingly enough, is a Node.js app that you have to use NPM. I'm not a huge fan of Node or NPM just because there's no version control or anything. People can kind of throw whatever they want up there, and you can get a bunch of you can put up malicious code in it and get a bunch of friends to give it really good ratings, and I'm sure a developer somewhere will download it and use it as a third-party library. But don't do that because that would be bad. So as you see, you just run is HTTP2 and the site name. You'll get a nice little green check mark. It'll tell you that it's supported, and it'll give you the same exact information that you get from like OpenSSL. Curl, you can actually use curl to connect to a page. You have to have the ng HTTP2 library installed for that functionality. And basically you have to use the HTTP2 option to actually tell it to use HTTP2. And then also you can use libcurl with the push function option to go ahead and connect as well. So if you want to use curl, if you're a fan of curl, there's how you use curl. So as we were talking with that, you can use ng HTTP2 with the ng HTTP -nv option. You have to use the entire domain name. So you have to type in HTTPS, google.com, To get it to work, it'll tell you that it negotiated over H2. And the thing that I like too is it'll go ahead and pull a lot of header information. It'll give you server names and stuff like that. So it's actually a pretty good recon tool just for any sort of web pen testing. Gives you a lot of cool information if you're into that. So it's a good one. And then the almighty Wireshark. So Wireshark will tell you that you're using it. And you can actually filter for it as well, which is kind of newer. It didn't support it at first, and now it's slowly getting over there. So then we look at detection at scale. So what if we want to look at all the HTTP2 servers out there instead of just looking at one? Because, who wants to go through every single IP address and try to find it? So this part's basically my journey through how painful it is and kind of the different methods that I've used. So the first one is an application called H2Scan. Again, this is another Go language. You basically do an echo to a site, and you can use multiple sites. You can create a text file and load it in however you want to do it, and then it'll go through and tell you all the sites and what they support. Next method is Nmap. So if you use the scripting engine, you can basically point it at 443, use the scripting engine, and you'll go ahead and get an H2 response. But it doesn't work with H2C. So basically, here's a tale of two VPSs that I use to do my testing. Just in case you guys want to do any external testing, this is the tale of my woe of trying to do this. So I use two VPSs. The first one is Google Cloud. So the pros of Google Cloud, you get a $300 credit for signing up, which is nice, but it's on the free tier. You get your choice of Linux VM, and the Linux VMs generally cost about $24 a month, but you're not paying for it, so who cares, right? The cons, you're limited on VM size, it's slow. Their support is really slow on the free tier, like it takes several days. You get very low level support, and it's really not researcher friendly. So basically, if you're going to use Google Cloud, get ready to get one of these about once to twice a day. And then you go ahead and you have to go through this like appeal process. And the appeal process just really sucks because, it says that they have 3 days. They will take the entire 3 days. So you're sitting there kind of biting your nails every time you do this. Are you going to shut me down or you're not going to shut me down? So basically, you just email them and you just tell them, hey, I'm a security researcher. I'm doing read-only access. Leave me alone. And that works for a while. It works really well. So after your 3 days, you'll get a nice blue email back from them. You click on it, you're good to go. They'll bring your VM back up. And the response works really well, only until it doesn't. So, they'll basically shut you down. And then to really do this, after you get this email, you just have to hound the crap out of their support and their compliance teams. And this can take a week to 2 weeks to get your VM turned back on. But I can say officially now that I have the distinction of being completely banned from Google Cloud. So thank you. I think I get a badge or something maybe. So if you're going to do any sort of Nmap or scanning or anything like that, don't use Google Cloud. So the second VPS that I use is Ultra VPS, which I highly recommend to do any sort of external testing. So the pros of it, it's cheap. It's about $10 to $20 a month. Self-service, it's super easy. They're US-based, and they are very security researcher friendly. They are the honey badger of VPSs. I don't think I've heard anything from them about anybody making complaints. So that's pretty good. So they don't give a shit. So basically, if you're going to use it, I used the $10 plan, and then I used the $20 plan, and they say they're kind of the same except for disk space. However, I noticed a really big boost in performance by just dropping $20, and it's really not that much, in the scheme of things. And if you keep a consistent VM with them, you can use it for all sorts of security testing, because you don't ever want to use your, home network for this stuff, right? So basically, on both of these platforms, I use Masscan. And the thing that I like about Masscan is it's quick, it's pretty easy to use. However, the con is it doesn't support Nmap scripting engine. So you can go through, it'll tear through, it'll find a bunch of stuff quickly. However, to kind of do a comparison, to go back to the VPS for a minute, on the $10 plan, it took me a week to mass scan, versus the $20 plan, it took under 48 hours to scan the entire internet. And that was a YOLO scan. There was no blacklist. So I think, did I say that it doesn't support scripting engine, right? So, okay. So basically, I went ahead and found close to 50 million IPs with port 443 open, and I had a big, fun 20 gig XML file, and really all I wanted was to get the IPs out. And unlike some people, I hate using grep, and again, I hate myself and I like to punish myself, so I built a Python script to do this for me. So basically, if you guys are interested in this script for any reason, it's already done for you. You can find it on my GitHub account under scripts. And it's basically XML to IP. Just ignore my other little script kiddie stuff in there. So basically, once I ran and pulled out all of the IP addresses, I had a really nice, big, fat text file of a bunch of IP addresses. So I had to resort to going back to Nmap. So Nmap, as we all know, is not as fast as Masscan is. So it's pretty slow. I kind of, since I was only looking at port 443, I kind of YOLO'd it again and used a minus T5 just to make it go faster. But it still took over a week to run on 49 million IPs. And basically, it only found around 300,000 instances of HTTP2, which I was like, that doesn't sound right to me. So I tried to use other data sources as well. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Project Sonar. Project Sonar is really cool. They rebranded it Open Data. And that's Rapid7's project that's consistently running, scanning the internet, just like Shodan is. And it has a ton of great data in it. The problem is it comes in a super small 50 gig file. And that will take a very long time to download. So, definitely wget with the continue option if you're going to pull that down. I'm kind of talking with them, and there's no support for HTTP2 at this time, but I'm talking to the security research team, and I guess some people have been asking, so we're really trying to get more interest in this so that they can add the probes in so we can actually pull that data out. And the other bad part too is it's a big, huge JSON file, so you can't actually grep it or anything else like that. It's pretty fun. So if you guys have any suggestions on how to parse a 50 gig JSON.gz file, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. So basically the next thing I used was Shodan. So with Shodan, the pros, it's easy to search. You can go ahead and use ssl.alpn with the H2 option, just in the search bar. Searching is free, and you can also create reports for free. The cons is paying to download results can get pricey. It's a long time to download results, so basically 1 million results takes about 3 days to download the report. And basically, if you do pay, you can only download about 1 million results. And I was in contact with John on this one, and basically Firehose results are only available to enterprise customers, which was a little disappointing to me. But it's really difficult to get an enterprise account. So good luck with that. So just to let you know, Shodan, so I ran 2 different searches. So as you see on 0214, there was 2.3, almost 2.4 million sites. And just to let you know how fast it's growing, there's now 3.6 million sites as of a couple weeks ago. So it is gaining traction. We're finding it more. So it is being more utilized. Okay. So top countries, basically there's 2 million is basically the United States, with China coming up behind it. So the top organizations, I know it's kind of hard to read probably, but to let you know, so Cloudflare is actually the biggest user of H2, and that's because everything they run is on Nginx, with Amazon coming in second. So there's a ton of stuff sitting in AWS right now that's using it. And then the projects, so Nginx is still the biggest one, and that's because Cloudflare. And then so really, what did I find out there? So in short, DOS. There's just DDoS all over the place. There's 4 major vulnerabilities that Imperva found. There's the slow read attack, which is basically affects Apache Server 2.4.17 and 2.4.18. And out of 1 million records that I found, there's still 7,000 servers sitting out there that are vulnerable. And the Nginx versions are a little bit harder to find because people like to hide that for some reason. It's shameful. And it's basically identical to slow LoRa's DDoS. So basically you attack the client and you DDoS it just from the responses. The next one is HPAC bomb. So it supports NG HTTP. So I only found 29 of those, and then older Wireshark versions. So it's a compression layer attack that's like a zip bomb attack or a decompression bomb, and it's basically you reduce the size of the packet headers, and the sender can basically receive the maximum size of the header compression table, and you can decode headers coming back. So basically, the attack vector would be creating small and innocent-looking messages, and you're actually unpacking gigabytes of data on the server. And it just consumes all the memory. It slows down or crashes the system. So again, DDoS attack there. Next one is dependency and priority. So we only found about 29 out of 1 million systems, and in the HTTP server 2.4.18 or earlier, there was roughly about 36. But again, it depends on if the servers are actually returning their versions or not. Leverages the control mechanisms that HTTP2 uses for network optimization. The client can basically send specifically crafted requests to prompt a dependency cycle. It forces the server into an infinite loop. So basically, again, you're causing a denial of service attack. And the last one is HTTP2 stream multiplexing. And it affects Windows Gold and Windows 10 1511. Really couldn't really find anything out there on that, but I thought it was kind of important to talk about. And it allows an attacker to exploit vulnerabilities in the way servers implement the streaming multiplexing functionality. And again, it eventually results in a DDoS attack. So basically, how do we prevent future attacks? So patch, update, and state current. If you don't need it, turn it off. In mitigating DDoS attacks, you can basically limit the rate of requests from any single user, limiting the number of connections that can be opened by a single client, closing connections more quickly with more aggressive timeouts, HTTP2 never closes the connection unless you explicitly tell it to. So it'll stay open indefinitely as long as the browser tab's open. So that's another one. And then another one that I didn't put on here was to go through Google's implementation guide and usually use all their suggestions on how to configure it. Because again, there's actually more stuff that I will cover next talk, just about DDoS attacks and how to perform them, because there is way more out there. And here's some good resources out there. So the awesome HTTP2 is great because it has a collection of info, RFCs. There's a lot of little test servers that you can use to stand up your own testing server, your own testing environment, if you're interested in looking at it. There's the H2 spec, which is tools that you can use to test. They're mainly for development use, but I found that some of them you can actually use to perform some more fun stuff on the servers, like load testing or maybe sending more packets than you should, things like that. It's a great resource to look at. And the last one is implementations. So it's known HTTP2 implementations. So it includes all the technologies that they know of that are supporting H2, from languages like what versions of Ruby on Rails you can use, what versions of JavaScript, what versions of servers, so on and so forth. So those are pretty good. And I think I'm way ahead of schedule. Sorry, I don't know if I was talking too fast. But basically, you guys have any questions? Because the answer is aliens.
Is H2C, is that part of the HTTP2 protocol, or is that just an additional feature set for the server to offer?
No, it's part of the protocol, but because it's unencrypted, it's not using TLS, so it's all just done via plain text.
Could you not use then Netcat and ask for a connection upgrade and watch for a 101 response? If that's basically
That's a good question. We could try it and see. I actually didn't think about that, but thank you. That's a good suggestion to try, because I don't know if it supports the 101 and the upgrade, if you're going to see that or not. A lot of tools that I tried just completely ignored that. So that's definitely a good one to try. So anybody else have any questions? You guys still awake? Nothing? I have to do a little bit more, but maybe DerbyCon or maybe next year. I don't know. It depends on time. So there's more about DDoS attacks that we can perform on them. And there's a little bit more testing that I want to do before I go out and make some claims. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the e-fail guy. And tell everybody to turn off PGP. I like to actually make an informed decision and make sure that I'm getting consistent results all across. And this is mainly done in my free time. So, as fast as I can get it knocked out, really what I'm looking for is somebody to help me out getting a lab set up with different WAF vendors. I don't know, I reach out to people and I'm like, hi, I'm a security researcher, and then there's no response. It's kind of hard to do the testing on the WAF portion. So that's something that I'm looking at, but I'm about 95% sure that we can pull WAF bypasses out there. It's just getting things to test against. And I'm also working on a NSE script to detect whether or not somebody's behind a CDN and what CDN it is. So hopefully, between that and the other part, I'll get it done. But I assume that this time next year I'll have some good stuff for you. I like talking here instead of at other cons because, it's cool here. And you guys don't throw things at me. But yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, shameful plug, I'll probably be posting more stuff about it. And then, again, if you guys have questions or, you want to send me hate mail, it's, Security Panda. Security_panda. Definitely let me know if you guys have suggestions, or if you go home and you're like, well, this would work. Definitely let me know, because I'm open. This is just been kind of a journey for me, trying to figure all this out, and kind of wanted to share it and have you guys have this information instead of having to wander all over the internet trying to find it. So let's see. Did I eat up all my time yet? I got 4 minutes. You want me to dance for you? No?
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks. No more questions? Yep, okay.